Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this press conference. Before we start, let me briefly pay tribute to the memory of Alexandre Lamfalussy, who was often referred to as the father of the euro and who passed away on Saturday. Baron Lamfalussy played a central role in the preparation of the Economic and Monetary Union as an eminent academic, as a member of the Delors Committee, and at the helm of the ECB's predecessor, the European Monetary Institute. He played a decisive role in European economic policy in later years as well, chairing the so-called Group of Wise Men, who laid out the groundwork for the regulation of European financial markets. His thinking on the perspectives of the EMU ranged broadly and continue to be highly relevant today. Let me now turn to the subject of our discussions today in the Eurogroup. It was a regular Eurogroup meeting, so we had a full agenda. In addition to Greece, we covered a number of issues regarding the economic situation and governance, and discussed the positive developments in Ireland. Let me start by Greece, as this is in the limelight right now. Today, the institutions informed us about the ongoing discussions with the Greek authorities. As you have seen, we've adopted quite a short statement today, in which we recognize that negotiations have advanced. The new setup of the negotiations, which was put in place after our last meeting, our Riga meeting, is more efficient, more positive, more constructive. We are making faster progress. Some important issues have now been discussed in depth, but more time is needed to bridge the remaining gaps and to reach a comprehensive agreement. We welcomed in particular the intention of the Greek authorities to accelerate the work with the institutions with a view to achieve a successful and timely conclusion of the review. As agreed in February, a comprehensive and detailed list of agreed reforms is needed as a basis for a successful conclusion of the current review. And I would like to reiterate that the agreement of the 20th of February remains the framework for the negotiations and that a comprehensive deal is necessary before any disbursements can take place. We will continue to monitor the situation and stand ready to meet as soon as the institutions confirm that there is a basis for a successful conclusion. After our stocktaking on Greece, we had a broad discussion on euro area economic issues. We discussed it from three different angles. First, the recently released Commission spring forecast for this year and next year and the related policy challenges. Pierre will also, of course, go into that. Secondly, we discussed how to promote sound budgeting to strengthen our economies. And thirdly, we discussed the follow-up of the February European Council conclusions about the strengthening of the economic governance of the EMU. Spring forecast from the Commission shows clear improvements. Recovery is strengthening, with growth picking up across the continent. There are more jobs, especially in some member states that have been suffering high unemployment. We also discussed inflation, exchange rate developments. We concurred with the assessment of the institutions that the risks of deflation have abated. But we all realize that we cannot keep counting on low energy prices, low oil prices, quantitative easing and low exchange rates. So to keep the recovery on track, we need more investments, jobs and raising productivity. And that means keeping our focus on growth-enhancing structural reforms and sound fiscal policies so that we capitalize on the current benign environment of low interest rates and higher growth. Today we also had a discussion on fiscal frameworks and the implementation of the fiscal frameworks in different countries. It was one of our regular discussions on jobs and growth in the context of the European semester recommendations addressed to the euro area as a whole. And we looked closely at the experience in a number of member states in implementing these fiscal frameworks, notably in Latvia, Ireland, Slovakia, Germany, and other ministers spontaneously told us about their experiences. The positive news is that the fiscal frameworks have been strengthened in almost all euro area member states, and we now need to translate these frameworks into strong track records for fiscal outcomes. And we will come back to that in July already, when we are looking at a review of the fiscal compact, and we'll return to it in 2016, when the Commission will provide us with an assessment of the effectiveness, so not just the legal implementation of the fiscal frameworks, but also what is actually the effect of it, and is it helping us in putting in place sound fiscal policies. Finally, on the Four Presidents report, we had an open exchange of views among ourselves on ways to improve economic governance within the EMU, making the euro area economies more competitive, and the euro area as a whole more resilient, more shock-proof for future shocks. We recognize there are clear links between what we can do in the short term, given the current frameworks in which we work. A lot of work still can be done within those frameworks, and what we need and can achieve in the long term. And this is about streamlining the European semester, better implementation, getting leverage on structural reforms, increasing competitiveness, deepening the single market, etc., etc. It's a broad range of views and ideas which we will make use of when we start drafting the report in the coming weeks. Finally, on Ireland, we were debriefed by the institutions on the main findings of the third post-programme surveillance mission, which took place a couple of weeks ago in Ireland. Significant progress was made by Ireland on fiscal, financial and structural issues, and this is notably reflected in Ireland's very strong economic performance that we're seeing right now. At the same time, of course, some challenges remain in Ireland, but we are confident that Ireland will remain its good track record to tackle those. Overall, Ireland remains a strong example that financial assistance programmes can be a real success, provided that the authorities are fully behind the programme and strongly committed to reforms, as was the case in Ireland. I would personally like to commend the Irish authorities and the Irish people for these positive achievements. That's all from me.